Community Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me here on hmTv. I'm your host, Bernie Furshpan of Raised by Survivors here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. This series explores what it means to grow up as a child of Holocaust and other genocide survivors. For many of us, our parents carried memories of unimaginable hardship, courage, and resilience. Those memories became part of our lives as well, shaping who we are and how we see the world. Today, I'm honored to welcome Tom Glaser, the son of Holocaust survivors Victor and Daisy Glaser. Tom has dedicated himself to sharing his parents' powerful story of survival during one of the darkest chapters in human history. Thank you for joining me, Tom. How are you?
Very good. Thank you.
I've seen the video of a presentation that you've made. It's quite compelling. It's incredible how your family survived. They've been in camps, many camps, and we're going to talk about how they survived this unthinkable, unimaginable, disastrous situation where only a third of the European Jews managed to escape certain death. Tell us about your parents, Victor and Daisy Glaser. What do you know about their lives before the war changed everything?
Well, they grew up in nice families. My mom was born in Vienna, Austria, moved as a young child, I'm not sure how old, to Prague. My father was born in a town just south of Prague, about 30 miles south of Prague, Votice. I'm probably not saying it correctly. And then moved to Prague. My father was taught himself how to play bridge at the age of, I don't know, late teens, and he was a world champion, really, not a world champion, but a Czech champion, played for the Czech national team. And he played with my mother's parents, actually. So when he was over at their house, my mom saw my father playing, and she liked what she looked like, liked him, and went after him. And then they got married. Well, not quite so fast, but my father was a soccer player, played the violin. I don't know too much more about really my mother's upbringing.
So they were basically part of the social fabric. They lived a very good life. They were part of regular society. They fit in comfortably, and they participated in sports, as you mentioned, in education and other things. And it didn't seem like the world was that bad at that time until things turned around, until people bought into this incredibly horrific and audacious ideology. When did your parents start talking to you about what they went through?
I think I maybe always knew, but I didn't really know a lot of details. I would hear different stories, whether it was at the dinner table, expecting to finish everything that was on our plate because there were so many years that they starved, or on Yom Kippur when I'd be struggling to fast for 24 hours, and my father would say, "Oh, that's nothing. I went 3 days without eating."
Mm-hmm.
Or just hearing different stories. Maybe when neighbors came over, and they wanted to know what some of the tortures or things that the neighbors or relatives, friends, whatever, came over. So I would hear stories when maybe didn't think I was listening or could hear them from the next room. But they never really sat us down. Me and my brother didn't really ever sit us down and tell us everything. I think that's probably more because it was harder on my mother. My father probably would have, Um, my mother was probably more sensitive to how it would affect us and how we would feel. And I know I would have been a crying mess.
Yeah, I mean, my parents too. A very similar story in that I got tidbits of information when I was very young. I remember they used to watch films on television, Holocaust related films, and they would show piles of bodies and they would sit there and sob. So I knew that there was some kind of a connection that they had with the Holocaust. And then they would feed us tidbits of information. And my mother would tell me a story here and a story there as we got older. And you're right about that. They never really sat us down and told us the whole story. And it was hard to really make that connection, even when you talk about fasting and your father said, "Oh, I didn't eat for several days at a time." My dad lived in the forest for 3 years and he ate tree bark and dead rabbit carcass. So these are just stories in our heads when we're young. Until you get older, then you start appreciating things, I think, as you get older and really looking back in time and understanding what they went through. It's pretty powerful, the fact that they were looking for ways to survive. When instinct kicks in, they did what they could to survive. And here we are telling their story. We owe them a lot, don't we?
We definitely do. Very appreciative that they stuck it out and did what they could to survive. Um, when I'm telling the story to students, I tell them how grateful I am to be here and
Where are you
how
located?
lucky I am to be here.
Where are you located, Tom?
I'm in Vermont. I,
And
I grew
what
up I grew up on Long Island, not far from Glen Cove, where you're from. I grew up in Roslyn Heights, um, but I went to the University of Vermont, mainly, I guess, because I was a ski racer and married a girl that I went to junior high and high school with, and um, we stayed up here in Vermont.
So you're up there and you say that you speak to students. Are you affiliated with any organizations or are you doing this independently?
I'm affiliated with Vermont Holocaust Memorial.
Mhm.
I'm on the board and obviously one of their speakers. I just looked. I think this school year I'll do it almost 30 times in various schools in Vermont. I've done it in some other states as well. I did do it in New York at the Wheatley School in Old Westbury, where I went to school. And I've done it in Minnesota, where my granddaughter was in school. Now she's in college. And I've done it in Florida as well, because some of the times we spend some time in Florida. So I'm involved with the Insight Through Education group in Florida.
Very good. So we seem to be following similar paths. We reached a certain age where we feel that we need to share these stories to tell young people that their generation can do a hell of a lot better. They can reach higher and they can be more tolerant and understanding of other people. I'm sidetracking here about education. Do you feel that it is having an impact? Does it mitigate what's happening out there, regardless of what's happening out there? Would it be worse if we didn't do what we're doing?
I I mean, like you, I'm trying to spread the word of what, you know, put a personal story behind the numbers that they might read in books or hear. And a lot of the students come up to me. They're so appreciative that I take the time. In the beginning, I could never hold it together. I would be an emotional mess telling the story, and they really appreciated that. Um, and so I gotta think I'm reaching the students, at least who I'm speaking to. Um, Unfortunately, in Vermont, it's not a mandatory subject that they study the Holocaust. So the Vermont Holocaust Memorial, we try every year with the legislature to get it made mandatory. So it's mostly an elective class. I'm pushing the schools now that I've gotten more comfortable telling the story. I've been pushing schools um, to have me speak in an auditorium to more of the school, more of the full classes rather than just the individual class that they might take it, where there might be 15, 20, 30 kids. Um, so that's working some, and I feel like, and I pat myself on the back. Every school that I've been to has asked me to come back. So the teachers and administrators must be thinking I'm doing something right.
You're doing something right for sure, because I watched your presentation and it is very detailed, it's very compelling. It's like, how can you not pay attention to an incredible story of survival like this? Can you just briefly, since we don't have a whole lot of time, just briefly tell me the story of both your parents and how they survived?
They were taken on a second transport from Prague. There were 5 transports of 1,000 each, so 5,000 were taken from Prague in October of 1941 to the Lodz Ghetto in Poland. Of those 5,000, only 261 survived, and only 19 couples, and they were married before they went. So they were one of those 19 couples. So they were in Lodz for almost, and they went there with my mom's younger brother, who was 16. My mother was about 20. My father was a little older. He was 34 when they were taken. And then both parents, both of my sets of my grandparents. The only ones that survived in my family were my parents. They were there in Lodz for almost 3 years. In August of 44, they were sent to Auschwitz. There they were separated in front of Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death. Um, my mom always said that she knew that she went to the same side as my father, and that gave her some strength, the strength to continue, because she knew that if there was any way to survive, that my father would find a way. Um, and my mother, after a few weeks, was sent to a camp called Gross Rosen. She worked in an underground munitions factory. All my life, I always heard that my father had it much worse. And I always like to say, nobody had it easy. However, my father, so after 3 weeks of being in Auschwitz, he was sent on a 3-day train ride. That's where he didn't eat for 3 days, to a camp called Riedlow in the southern part of Germany. He was there about 4 months. Um, I don't know if you want me to get into some of what he went through, but and then another, I don't know, a number of camps, and he was in 9 camps, and eventually he was liberated by the Americans on I'm sorry, April 30th, 1945. And after a few
Wow.
weeks of gaining some strength and getting back to Prague, where he found out that my mom survived, and two of them got back together.
That's incredible. I never heard of anybody surviving 9 camps. I've heard the most, maybe 6, but maybe 8, but 9 camps. I mean, it's hard to survive one camp.
The Germans moved them around as they felt pressure when the Allies were approaching.
Do you want to tell us one story that your father shared with you that you'd like to share with our audience so that they understand how low we can descend as a society?
So this is a story that I lived with for about half of my life, and so when neighbors or friends would come over, um, and they would want to hear something that maybe happened to my father might say, and I'm in the next room, and I don't think he's thinking I'm listening. Later on, um, I'm sure he knows that, knew that I knew the story. So my father would say, sometimes when they're outside by with their roll call, their appel, there would be a bunch of prisoners there, and the guard might say, you and you, step forward. We're going to give you a stick. You're going to beat him until he's dead. If you don't do it, we're going to give him the stick, and he's going to beat you until you're dead. Neither one of you does it, I'll take the stick and I'll kill both of you. So all my life I would hear my father say this story, but I could never get up the guts to ask him, um, did he ever do this? Did he ever kill anybody? Obviously, he wasn't killed. And then not until 1987, when he took my wife and our three young boys, they were about 12, 11, and 6, to Dachau. And we're walking past one of the many, from the gas chambers back to the barracks, past one of the many foundations that are still there. He stops and he starts telling us the story, or he tells us the whole story. And I think because my boys were so young, and I hear my father telling the story, I said to my father, I said, Dad, did you ever have to do this? Did you? And he goes, thank God, no, I was never picked. And I just broke down and cried. I didn't realize what I had been living with for so long.
That is an incredible story. I heard something similar where a guard took a father and son, gave the father a shovel, had the son lay down on his back, and he told the father to drive the shovel through his son's throat. And he refused, and he gave the son the shovel to do the same to the father, and he refused. And then the guard shot them both dead. This is the kind of brutality, the kind of unthinkable behavior that people can do to another person makes me so angry. It's like, how can we stoop to this level? The fact that they can get away with it, literally get away with murder, brought out the sickest human beings out of the woodworks, right?
My father said animals wouldn't treat other animals the way they treated us.
Never. Agreed, 100%. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's tough to share stories like that. My father also lived in a forest. I'll share this with you. My father lived in a forest for 3 years, from age 10 to 13. They killed his entire family. It was a family of 8 people. Only 30 people out of 1,500 from his village survived. One night he's sleeping with a mother and infant as the Nazis are coming through the forest, hunting down hiding Jews with their German shepherds and rifles and guns. The baby starts to cry, and the mother takes my father's 10-year-old hand and forces him to silence the child. She made a child silence a child, and my father had to live with that. And I didn't know this story. My dad would wake up in the middle of the night crying. I didn't know until I was much older. My mom told me the story, and then I understood why. He had PTSD, and I didn't know what PTSD was. We didn't know what PTSD was. He was triggered by a lot of things, and he had quirky behavior. And now I understand what people go through when they go through nightmares like this. And it's not just the Holocaust. Since the Holocaust, some 55 million people have been killed in genocides, and they all went through these traumas and uncertain whether they're going to survive another day. It's unbelievable with this kind of trauma. This was the worst of them all. This was industrial scale killing. And this should never, ever happen again. Unfortunately, it has, on different scales, but it has, and it continues to happen. And I just hope that the next generation will wake up to this kind of hate, to this level of hate where they can say enough is enough. I really, truly hope that younger people, that's why you and I are doing what we're doing, Tom, right? Is to wake them up from this zombie state, from this unconscious state, from this complicit state of being apathetic and being more empathetic to other people, and realizing that we're all related and this is not the way we should be treating each other.
People, the good people need to step up and stop the bad people. I believe there will always be bad people, and unfortunately, not everybody is good, but the good people need to step up and stop the bad ones.
Let me ask you another question here. Today, there's a lot of anti-Semitism that's coming up to the surface. It's unapologetic. It's out in the open. Why is it so important for us second-generation voices to continue telling these stories? These stories are over 80 years old, but what's the relevance?
The anti-Semitism is the start of it, isn't it? It grows more. We need to tell our story, I guess. That's
No, it's true. We do have to tell our story because these are red flags, right? Because this is how it happened in Nazi Germany. It all started with words and hate.
These were real people, like them, like the others, like the person on the left and right of you. You might not like everybody in life, but not to, but to do something about, where make it a killing, then that's another story.
These are ordinary people just like you and I who can be easily manipulated, lied to, and coerced to do bad things, right? I mean, that's what happens when ideology, kind of like cancer, radicalizes the minds around them. And together as a mob, they can do a lot of damage. And it seems like this cycle keeps repeating itself. I hope that the fog will clear and we will have better days for our grandchildren. Do you have grandchildren, Tom?
I do. 2 granddaughters and 1 grandson. Granddaughters are 19 and 16, and my grandson will be 11 in a couple of weeks.
Fantastic. We have 4 and 1 on the way, and we think about their future, right? We want them to have a much better future. Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This was an exceptional conversation. I truly appreciate your insights and the work that you're doing in educating young people today about the history of the Holocaust and that they should be more tolerant with each other.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure, Tom. And I want to thank my listening audience and my watching audience for joining us here on hmTV. Humanity Matters here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. I'm Bernie Furshpan, host of Raised by Survivors. Until next time.